And as the president considers pardoning war criminals, a sitting U.S. congressman admits he took pictures with enemy corpses. California Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter is facing quite a few questions now after admitting that while he was a Marine serving in Iraq, he posed with the body of a dead enemy combatant. Hunter made these comments as he was defending this man, Navy SEAL Edward Gallagher. Gallagher is facing a court-martial trial. He's charged with murdering a teenage Taliban fighter with a hunting knife and then posing with the body for a photo. Prosecutors say the teenager was injured and already in custody at the time. He's also accused of shooting civilians in Iraq and shooting into crowds, and he's reportedly being considered for a pardon by President Trump. It's important to note that Congressman Hunter is under indictment himself. He is accused of misusing $250,000 in campaign funds. Republican leadership removed him from all congressional committees. Let's talk now with Maryland Senator Ben Cardin. He's a Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And, sir, I want to start with this revelation from Duncan Hunter. Has he, by his own admission, committed a crime, in your view, a war crime?
It may well be. The U.S. military code of conduct is pretty clear as to how our soldiers must conduct themselves in war. America's strength are in our values, what we stand for as a nation. And we hold other countries accountable when they violate international standards. Our soldiers are going to be held to a high standard. And if they violate that standard, then they have to be held accountable. It should be no reason to pose with a dead combatant. That's just something that glorifies the loss of a life that should not be done.
Hunter, at the time when he said this, was defending Gallagher, who, according to his fellow SEALs, is guilty of various war crimes. The president is considering pardoning Gallagher. What message do you think that would send?
It's clearly the wrong message. I took to the floor of the Senate last week to speak about the news accounts of the president considering these pardons. We have to let the process go forward. Those that are being held are responsible for conduct. They need to have their day in court. The president should not circuit that out by using the pardon. And so I would hope the president would recognize that the signal it would send, not just to soldiers here in America, but to the international community, that America will not hold countries accountable for violating international standards in war.
Let's talk about North Korea now. While in Japan, the president said he was not personally bothered by the recent North Korean short-range missile tests. Should he be bothered?
Oh, absolutely. Kim Jong-un is violating his international commitments. He's violating UN resolutions. He is still pursuing a nuclear weapons program. We have tens of thousands of Americans who lost their life defending the Korean Peninsula. Their legacy, we want to have a stable Korean Peninsula. The president giving Kim Jong-un credibility when he's done nothing to eliminate the nuclear threat is just wrong. We want to have negotiations. We want to see negotiations work, diplomacy, but you don't glorify Kim Jong-un for violating international commitments.
The president ignored the assessment of the situation that was given by his national security advisor, John Bolton, who took a much harder line here. You are certainly no fan of Bolton. You called him reckless. You said he was an extremist when he was picked as national security advisor. So in this situation, what do you think? What do you think of his assessment here?
Well, I can tell you, I think the national security team around the president, the intelligence community, all believe that Kim Jong-un has taken no steps to date to eliminate the nuclear threat. The first thing you do is make a declaration of all your nuclear facilities. Kim Jong-un has not done that. He's not taken any concrete steps to remove the nuclear weapon capacity of his country. It's not just our intelligence community. You saw with the host country in Japan when the president was there, Abe said disagreed strongly with the president's announcement on Kim Jong-un and the tests not violating international commitments. So I think the president just shot from the hip on his comments. I think Mr. Bolton and the national security team strongly understands the danger of Kim Jong-un's conduct.
I want to ask you about the latest front in the Trump-Biden engagement here. The president has been taking aim at your former Senate colleague, Joe Biden, over helping write the '94 crime bill. this has also been a vulnerability for him on the left because of what came of the crime bill. You voted for the bill when you were in the House. This is an issue that Biden is going to have to negotiate. So I'm wondering, for you, someone who has this hindsight on this bill that you voted for, but we've heard from many Democrats and Republicans who feel like there was unintended consequences here, so you have some particular insight on this. How should he negotiate that issue when he's trying to explain his record?
Of course, this was 25 years ago. We were able to bring different views together in a major crime bill. The challenge was very close to the election when we finally passed it, but it included many important provisions for its time, and it was a compromise. There were a lot of good things in the bill. There's some things that turned out not to work the way we wanted to. That's why we've changed the law. The first step that passed in this past Congress was a good beginning to modify some of the provisions that need to be modified at the national level. But to go back 25 years ago, we should be doing more of this today. That is, we should be taking up major issues and trying to resolve them. Instead, in the United States Senate, we've hardly had any debates on major issues. So I think you got to put this in context. You got to recognize there was a lot of good in this bill. There's some things that didn't turn out the way we wanted them to, and we are working to change them today.
So when you're talking about the things that didn't turn out how you wanted them to, he's been asked about that, and he said that the bill did not generate mass incarceration. There are certainly many advocates, many people who have looked at the consequences of the bill, and they say that's not true. That's how he is even recently approaching this. Is that the way to, I mean, that does not run exactly with the strategy of explaining oneself voting for this bill that you just laid out.
Well, there's two parts to mass incarceration. One are the laws we passed. The second are how were they implemented. We saw that over the last 25 years, we've had a lot of chief executives that have said we want zero tolerance. Anyone who violates our law is going to be held highly accountable. We saw that in Baltimore City and what happened with arrests in Baltimore. So I think you have to recognize it's not just the laws, but how the laws were enforced. And we went through a period of time where zero tolerance was a popular political position for those who enforced our laws. We are now changing that for the good. Our incarceration policies were wrong, not just the laws, but how they were implemented. So now we're giving clearer direction that we want to end that policy, and I think we've taken steps to do it. I think Joe Biden understands that. He's been part of recognizing that we need to modernize our federal laws. A lot of this is at the state level, not the federal level, so we have to work with our state partners. So I have all the confidence that Joe Biden fully understands that, but going back 25 years ago, that was where we were then, trying to deal with some national problems, and I think it was a good faith effort.
All right, Senator Ben Cardin, thank you so much. The legacy.